Hey, it's me again, bringing you another part of the ARK Invest 2022 summit, where they've basically outlined and updated their vision for where the world is going over the next, you know, basically by the end of the decade. And there's obviously a lot to talk about. We've obviously covered some of the initial research, different sectors. We started with artificial intelligence last time, so check out that video as well if you haven't seen it already. And now let's take a look at the digital consumers and what are the kind of the big thing in the societal, right? Because every great investor has to be also a psychologist, sociologist, understand technology, and have this general, kind of have to feel where the world is going. So, how are we going to spend our time and money in the coming years, both online, maybe offline a little bit as well? Um, so, what's the stance of Cathie Wood and Ark Invest? Let's hear it out. So basically, what Ark Invest and Cathie Wood are seeing is that there is the new digitally native consumer basically emerging, and they are spending an increasing amount of time socializing, playing, and purchasing online. Right? There are so many stuff that are going on at the moment because in a sense, like the Facebook obviously wasn't the first that come with like this the huge metaverse concept. In a sense, we are all already living like that, where many times our digital identities are almost more important than our physical in real life ones. Our profiles on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn are basically very carefully crafted, supposed to tell a certain story. They are very complexly curated by us, right? And so this digital world is just taking a big share of our daily lives. And ARC believes that the market, as measured by online entertainment spend, advertising spend, and platform e-commerce fees, is likely to grow at 18% compound annual rate during the next 5 years from 1.8 trillion to 4.1 trillion in 2026, right? So here they are having a little bit shorter term outlook compared to their usually extrapolating all the way out to the 2030. But again, if you always read the fine print, forecasts are inherently limited and cannot be relied upon. But again, you have to make your own decision. Listen to some of those, great minds we are obviously having around. Maybe take a little bit of Cathie Wood and Ark Invest, listen to some of the little contradict points, and the truth is somewhere there, right? Somewhere at the intersection of all of these ideas. So we as a humanity are always trying to extrapolate and self-correct our course over the next couple of years. So obviously with all this information that's coming, we are going to adjust as well. But obviously, this is painting a really interesting picture that's definitely worth noting. So, here we can see how digital is taking a big share of our life, as we are basically spending such a significant time from our weekly routine basically online, where if we look back to 2010, it was only about 10% of time was spent online, just maybe a couple of hours on like the social media or watching something. But these days, now we are at 2022, so it's somewhere here that, we are basically spending about 30-ish percent kind of online, but that's going to grow and grow and grow, where it's supposed to be approximately half and half in 2030. That's a lot, obviously. And obviously we have to align our investment with if we believe ARK Invest that this is going to happen. So you can see how the social platform are scaling like never before, and they are also scaling much more rapidly than ever before. The adoption and the changing of different social media is super quick. Obviously you're watching this on YouTube, which you can kind of see how long it took for it to achieve a certain threshold of monthly active users, right? You can see that Facebook was in a sense one of the first social media, and it did you can see that the newer social media, right? If, for example, we are talking as one of the newest big dogs, TikTok was able to achieve the same amount of the previous, or basically it took it only 5.1 years to reach 1 billion of monthly active users, right? Compared to of the usual 7 or up to 8-9 years of the previous ones, like Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, WeChat, Instagram. So lots of these social media, they are in a sense overlapping, right? You have this like the oldest cohort of Facebook and YouTube. Then you have basically like a WhatsApp, WeChat, and Instagram in like the second generation, and then you have the TikTok in the newest generation. Maybe you could count Snapchat there, which is relatively popular. And obviously there are kind of springing new ones, which some of those might eventually take off. Some of those will die. You might have heard about Clubhouse, which at some point, was relatively popular, was taken over by basically, in a sense, Twitter Spaces. So this social media is relatively fluid environment. But nonetheless, we are just spending really long hours there, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. And you can see how the digital advertising is obviously shifting, right? We know that many times it takes a lot of time for big companies that many times just want to maintain the status quo, and for a long time they were just comfortable with investing their advertising dollars in like the traditional media, in the print, in the TVs, kind of have the traditional ads, which are obviously not as effective. And it took certain time for the new social media with the targeted ads to take over. But you can see that now in 2022 we are definitely seeing this huge influx of digital ad spend, which is going bigger and bigger, and the traditional ad spend is slowly diminishing. But again, you can see that it's a relatively, still a high number. So basically, what ARC believes is that the global digital advertising market will grow at 11% compound annual rate over the next 8 years, surpassing 1 trillion in expenditures by the end of 2029. So definitely a great compounding, not as immense as we've seen from some of those other sectors and industries, but definitely something worth looking into. And again, just making sure that your companies are making the smart decisions, right? Because you are either the disruptor or the disrupted, or you use the disruption to your advantage. There is not any fourth way how to get rid of this riddle. And then we are also talking social commerce is the next wave of online shopping, where kind of the how we are doing shopping these days, right? Because try thinking about it a little bit from the perspective of you as the consumer, right? What do you do when you usually shop for some product, or how do you make like the spending decision, right? Because that's interesting to look at it from the perspective of investor and consumer, right? So because as a consumer you can see your own habits or habits of your peers, your maybe different generation, right? Either maybe your parents or your children, if you go like a generation up or down, or your, let's say, older colleagues, younger colleagues, and see how the world is basically progressing. And especially it's always better to look at the younger generation, right? Because they are always the one driving the future. So the social commerce in a sense is definitely getting more and more prominent. Same with the pure e-commerce, and traditional commerce is just slowly declining, not in a significant way. It's definitely still something that's here to stay, but again, we are just in this world where there are so many opportunities, and this is one of them. And there are, of course, games as the new social platform, or so-called like the third spaces, right? Where we are seeing lots of interesting stuff happening, because gaming is just became such a huge market. I was super surprised a couple of years ago when I've actually realized or read some article that the gaming industry in itself is bigger than the movie and the music industry combined, right? There is a immense amount of resources that spend with like the game development. Usually the games are relatively complex compared definitely to music, and to some extent to many of the traditional movies, unless we talk about those like super blockbusters with high budgets. And the main reason for that I see is that obviously the games of like the recent couple of years, they've become more and more socialized. So you are able to basically meet with your friends and spend time together, interact. So they are having this additional aspect compared to music or movies, where it's in a sense just a shared experience, but just perceived kind of on your own without that level of interaction. And humans are obviously very much social creatures. And in a sense, it's not that of a big difference if you are socializing in a real life or inside the games, right? So there are definitely lots of opportunities there. So for example, we are obviously having one of the big hits of the recent years, Fortnite, which exemplifies a massive shift into social gaming. It was launched in 2017. It's kind of the first person battle royale game. And there are just so many players and so many also people just watching other people play on let's say social media like Twitch. Fortnite is also just capitalizing of all this cooperation and synergies with other intellectual properties, right? Cooperating with many other existing brands like Star Wars, Marvel, cooperation with NBA, NFL, hosting concerts inside, right? So again, taking basically that music or movies inside and connecting it in one big world. And that's just one of the other personifications of the whole metaverse. That's again, it's been here all along. We just never noticed and never named it that way, but it's something that's going on. And sometimes if you are some of those suits on Wall Street, just reading the reports, and you are locked in your bubble of numbers and projected revenue, and you don't really pay attention what's happening in the real world, what are your kids up to, in a sense, you can easily lose a track, right, what's happening. So some of those events that are happening in the gaming sector, and we are having many other kind of the big metaverse plays, interesting companies such as Roblox, right? So that's another kind of very interactive world where so many of interesting opportunities can happen. And again, a digital world cooperating with lots of other intellectual properties, creating this unique experience. So exciting. And as more people are just kind of spending more time in the metaverse or in games, online in general, then they are also willing to spend more money there, right? Because why would you spend more money in real life, where actually the digital life is the part that matters, right? That's where your friends are. That's where you are perceived as a human being. So it might as well make sense for you to spend more money at some of those digital opportunities. So yeah, that was roughly about kind of the changes in like our digital perceived environment, how we are living in a digital world. And next time we're going to look into digital wallets and how the traditional banking is being disrupted by some of those fintech companies. So again, hope you find this useful. We are going to bring you some more of those updates over time, and make sure your portfolio is aligned with those super trends. Take care for now, and pleasure to have you here. Well, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you would like to join us inside the Financial Fortress, which is the best long-term stock market investing Discord there is, then join us at the link down below, and eventually, get one of those 6-figure or 7-figure trophies and become successful in the long run, right? Because investing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. But as long as you have the right resources, attitude, and stay consistent, then you can do it. Because if I could do it, you can do it as well. See you inside.